50 years in the making, half a century of excellence in the sales ring and on the racecourse, horses who've lifted the hearts of everyone who loves our sport. Through achievement and brilliance, through endeavours in racing's greatest theatres, a common thread emerges, the Derby Sale. I'm at the home of someone whose exploits at the Derby Sale led her to extraordinary heights. Something I wanted to ask you, what do you do with the horses when you get them back from the Derby Sale? How I mean, do they go out? Do you put a saddle on them right away? What's the routine normally?
When the horses used to arrive, well, I used to stay there until they were all loaded on the lorry, because I used to like them to have travel boots on, and then once they were packaged to come back to the UK, then I was happy that there was my future travelling home.
And when they came home, when they got home?
They'd arrive on a Saturday morning, because I'd get home.
Would you get them broken right away? Or
Oh, no.
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 Because you always played the long game. I mean, these, as we've seen.
Yeah. There was a row of 10 boxes in front of along the kitchen window. I could see out the kitchen window where new horses would be put, so that you can see their heads over the door without going out and looking when every verse end. So they used to go into that row of stables. If I got, sometimes I might just have a couple. I had 10 this one year that I'd bought, and just to see them with their heads over the doors. And we used to keep them in for a week. And you can see then if anything's looking over the door, whether it's trying to crib bite, whether it's a weaver or what it's doing. Because when horses are going to do those sort of things, they'll do it when people are not around. So they used to stand along there. I could see them out the kitchen window. So if I was making a cup of tea or doing something in the kitchen or just that, just do a bit of that.
Yeah.
We used to worm them. That'd be number one job. We used to wash them off, deflea them or whatever. They probably didn't have lice, but everything was washed off. Everything was then wormed, and they get their flu jab. So that week was treatment week.
So they went out before they came back to be backed and onwards. One thing I did notice, for instance, your two Grand National winners, the seasons that they ran from October through to Aintree and maybe beyond. I mean, they turned up at Aintree in absolute top-notch condition. They'd probably gone to Cheltenham as well. They'd done the Hennessy, they'd done the Anti-Malmé, the Gainsborough. I mean, they were hard-raced horses, weren't they, compared to today?
Yes, I'm not quite sure what we're trying to achieve. Not all horses need to have a gap. Look, common sense tells you the more often they run, the more likely they are to pick up an injury, you would think. So they may get brought down, they might strike into themselves, jump in a hurdle or landing over a fence or getting a cut or anything. Maybe we've tried to become that pure that we're taking away what they were actually bred for, which is to race. I always thought that to race my horses before January, you were nearly there with your fitness regime. You'd got your footing in, if you see what I mean. So really, you were just needed something then to finish them off. Hence, the really bad winter we had when I took Corbière, the year he won the National, and a load of other horses down to Breen Sands down there. It was magic. And do you know what? They absolutely loved it. And all we did there, we never galloped them. I used to drive alongside in the car, and they never did more than 18 miles an hour. That was their maximum. Along the sand, up and down the sand.
Jenny, tell me about owners now. You train for all sorts of different owners. Do you have to train owners? I mean, how do you work them? It has to be a skill, doesn't it?
I think the likes of Nicky, Willie Mullins. I find, and you know, all the big trainers, how they deal with the owners and keep them all happy, I've got no idea. Majority of my owners were lovely, and they trusted me, and they were good friends and remain friends even after I retired from training horses. The one thing that does make me chuckle a bit is when they come up to you in the races and they said, "Oh, Jen, I wish you hadn't retired. We didn't realise how lucky we are." I said, No, you didn't. When your bill still hadn't been paid and you'd had it 2 months. The people that I trained for, generally, they knew that if they didn't I didn't just invite somebody into my house, give them a cup of coffee, open a bottle of booze, and take the money off them. If they wanted to see a horse, I'd show them round the yard, the type of horse I would buy, and then we'd chat about it. They'd say what type of horse they were looking for. And I'd say, "Well, that's what I've shown you today." I said, "Go back and think about it, and if you still want a horse here, come back and see me again."
Yeah.
One chap said he was astonished, and that he and his wife went up to the M4 motorway services and sat there and had a cup of coffee and rang me up and said, "We don't need to think any longer. We do want a horse with you." Yeah. I think it's a partnership. It is a bit like a marriage, and sometimes things go wrong. We all know that.
Jenny, you say pride doesn't come into your language and that sort of stuff. I've been talking to a marvellous soft Jenny, but there was a Jenny with antlers as well, I understand.
Well, of course.
Tell me about the antler days.
I'm the person that you were talking to then. But if you don't have, back in the day, let me tell you, if when I went under the stairs and got my coat out to go to the races, that wasn't a coat of armour, trust me, you weren't going to survive it. Because it was a tough job. When I first started out, I did feel that there were some people that were a bit unnecessary to me. And when I won the Grand National, they probably thought, "Ooh, well, she got lucky, didn't she? Because it's a handicap, you know, she got a bit lucky." So I never got one other horse for winning that. And I thought to myself, I'm going to have to try harder. So we won the Gold Cup the next year. And then people perhaps thought, well, maybe she wasn't just lucky. And bearing in mind that the type of horse I used to get in the early days before I won the Gold Cups, I used to have horses, you know, the people that have these yards now. That's what I was doing for Fred Winter and Fort Walwyn and Barry Hills. I used to have their horses resting. So they used to send their experts in to look at horses I'd got for them when I lived at Hinton Parva. So I was very fortunate to meet people like Ronnie Longford, for instance. He was just unbelievable. He came to see a horse for Fred Winters. I used to ride it out. And when you were sat on it, you never looked between its ears. It was always over there somewhere. So I'm telling Fred Winter about this. And he said he would get this chap come to see it. Anyway, Ronnie treats the horse, and I'm looking at it and think, if he's done anything to that, I'm a monkey's uncle. Anyway, the next day I rode it out. I couldn't believe it. Do you know what? I'm actually sat between that horse's ears, if you see what I mean. I'm looking between its ears. So from that day onwards, I've had an open mind about acupuncture, about homeopathy. I've used it. And if it works, it doesn't work on everything, homeopathy, acupuncture, Garrison Savannah wouldn't have even gone into the parade ring, the pre-parade ring at Cheltenham, if it hadn't been for acupuncture. So life's about learning, and you can either fill yourself up of drugs, weed, whatever they call it now, cocaine, do what you like. I smoke cigarettes, but I don't actually bother anybody else for it, just apparently do myself in. We all need that comfort blanket in some way or other. However, when you with people, even if you think this ain't working, just don't shut your mind to it, because I thought that and I've actually seen it work. I think those people that were a bit unnecessary to me, if they had a winner, I think, oh, I wanted two. You get people like Fred Winter that you'd see on the gallops in the morning, and they will never understand how their words of kindness were such a massive boost to me. If they'd say, "Morning, Jenny, oh, that's a nice horse," I used to think, oh, good, he likes it, because he was champion trainer, and he likes my horse. And then I remember one summer where I thought I must be on the right road. It was after the Derby sale, and we'd started going back up the gallops again. So it must have been about August time. And I said, "Oh, morning, Governor." I said, "Have you bought lots of nice horses during the summer?" He said, "No, I bloody haven't." He said, "because you bought them all as 3-year-olds." Because that was the only thing I could afford. I had to buy them as 3-year-olds. Because it was sort of HP for owners, if you see what I mean. Because they bought them a year before it was traditionally the done thing. People wanted 4-year-olds. I had to buy 3-year-olds because they were that much cheaper.
Absolutely. No, 4-year-olds were huge in those days, weren't they? Jenny, it's been an absolute privilege to talk to you. You've led the most incredible career, and Tattersalls Ireland is so proud that the Derby sale played an important part in supplying you with horses.
Let me tell you, it didn't play an important part. It made my life what it was. Take those horses out of my ball game, then what? I've got Borough Hill Lad, of course I have. He'd only got one sound leg when he came to me. I've been very blessed, and they've always, from Willie O'Rourke, from the day I bought Queen's Ride, I went over there to buy to buy a horse. I think I'd got £2,000 to spend.
I know he and Loch Row, your other horse, they cost very little between them.
Queen's Ride actually beat Borough Hill Lad up at Nottingham. Do you know that? What I want to tell you about how you get treated in Ireland. First horse I buy at the sales, Queen's Ride. We've waited all day, it's late at night, and we're starving hungry. Freezing cold and starving hungry. It's about 10:30. So where can we get something to eat? Oh, go down the coffee dock. So we're waiting to see if they can do us some food, because it's late. I think they stopped serving about 10 or 10:30. Anyway, they said they could do us some French onion soup, which was the best French onion soup I've ever had in my life, ever. So there's David and I having this French onion soup, and we noticed Willie O'Rourke sat on his own, also having whatever he was having. He leaves, we go to pay our bill for the 2 French onion soups and the cups of tea. He'd already paid it. You wouldn't get that over here. Do you know why? Because they sow seed. In Ireland, they plant this seed. We're more inclined to want to reap the crop without planting the seed. You can't do that. Not if you want it to last. And if you don't plant your seed deep enough, your crop falls over, I'm afraid.
Jenny,
and all you do is end up with a load of weeds.
Jenny, it's been an absolute joy and a privilege talking to you, and I am hoping that in this 50th anniversary of the Derby sale that you will be able to join us in June for what will be quite a celebration. It's important, you're important, you can expect an awful lot of selfies and autograph hunters and handshakes, and we look forward to seeing you there.
See, Jesus, I wouldn't miss it for the world.